Welcome back into the GSMC Sports Podcast, as we are now going to be reacting to the news that the Las Vegas Raiders have decided to move forward with Gardner Minshew as their starting quarterback, which is a little bit of an unexpected decision for me. I mean, ultimately, the Raiders decided to sign Gardner Minshew to a 2-year deal this offseason, and it was very clear that they didn't feel all that confident in their in-house options, specifically looking at Aidan O'Connell to be the player that can, be the leading guy moving forward. Now, that being said, I do think that we are all pretty aware of Gardner Minshew's shortcomings as a quarterback, and I don't love the idea of fully handing him the keys here. Ultimately, when you look at the performance from both of these players in their preseason game over the weekend, it was interesting because neither one of them really did all that much to convince the Raiders of who they should be leaning in favor of. Gardner Minshew this past weekend, 10 of 21, 95 yards, and 1 interception. Interception was pretty brutal. Now, if I were to defend him a little bit, I do think that Minshew a little bit in this game looked like he was almost playing for his job, like especially the interception, I believe, came on a play where he was, or at least a really bad decision where he was trying to almost on third down force a play while going on the run, trying to extend the drive, and ultimately he ends up throwing a really bad pass, and it ends up, I think the play I'm talking about actually ended up in an incompletion, so don't mind that. But it was right at the end of the first quarter. Minshew made an awful decision trying to sort of force a ball in there, almost like he was trying to, almost like he knew that the idea that the starting quarterback job could be taken from him if the drive ended there. And overall, he just looked pretty rough, but it's not like Aidan O'Connell necessarily did himself any favors either once he got into the game. And, O'Connell's first pass was a pretty nice throw over the middle off of a play action between a couple defenders for a nice pickup. It seemed like O'Connell was building up a little bit of momentum for himself throughout the course of the game. And then ultimately, O'Connell just threw a brutal pick six to start off the fourth quarter that did a little bit seem like he was maybe in the process of locking down a job for himself, but it's just a very bad play where he was slow going through his progressions, and he was just read like a book by the defender who got him and took it for 6, and that ended up ending the night for Aidan O'Connell. But it might have also ended up ending the chances of him becoming the starting quarterback for the Raiders this upcoming season. But again, it's not like Gardner Minshew was very effective throughout his time either. It sort of just comes down to the idea of, at least for me, when I think about this conversation, Aidan O'Connell has the unknown behind him that almost makes him a more intriguing prospect for them. That, Aidan O'Connell is probably a very similar talent to Gardner Minshew. I don't think that one quarterback gives you a significantly higher chance of winning than the other, but at least with Aidan O'Connell, maybe it's something where the locker room can start to buy into it, but I don't want to start speculating on that because maybe the locker room is bought into Gardner Minshew as well. It's probably even more so about the fan base than the locker room itself. But the Raiders, coming off of what was a really, really ugly first half of the season last year, when they had Josh McDaniels in town and Jimmy Garoppolo was clearly not the answer for them, that they're just trying to improve morale this year and keep themselves competitive and give themselves a chance on a weekly basis to win a football game. And if that's the case, Gardner Minshew might just be the obvious pick there, because we saw him do some pretty significant things with the Colts last year. It's not like he was unbelievable. That was a more talented Colts team than I think the casual NFL fan realizes, but Minshew, when he was playing, was pretty effective. Threw for 3,300 yards in 13 games, 15 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, and he had a winning record in his starts, was 7-6. So Minshew, it seemed like, was a good enough option for the Colts last year and could be just a good enough option for the Raiders this year. Again, sort of on the idea of this unknown. We know what Gardner Minshew already is. And I suppose that at this point with the Raiders, consistency is just kind of their main goal of, again, week to week, we know we have a chance to win this game. Aidan O'Connell, with so much more unproven there, I understand it. I do. But I also had sort of talked myself into, before we had gotten the answer on this, that I almost like Gardner Minshew more as a backup coming in for a starter, whether it be performance-based or injury. Like, Gardner Minshew isn't, I don't see him as like a frontline ace, almost for a baseball metaphor here. I see him more as a really quality middle reliever who isn't going to start the game for you, but he can keep you alive for as long as, you are in the game. But I wouldn't necessarily have all of my investment into Gardner Minshew, so I don't know. I was kind of hoping to see a little bit of a late season Minshew mania run, but instead he starts the season. I can't say that that's a bad decision whatsoever. I think that their quarterback situation as a whole is just sort of messy, and that they just weren't ever going to have, a great answer at the position for this upcoming season. It's just almost that much more disappointing considering the fact that, Minshew and O'Connell, neither one of them impressed in their most recent game, and it did seem like the Raiders almost made the decision. And again, this is totally me inflecting my own opinions on this game onto the coaching staff decision, but it's not, I don't feel like it was the Raiders sitting there. It's like, yeah, Gardner Minshew gives us a chance to win a lot of games this year. It's that Gardner Minshew will give us less of a chance of losing maybe than Aidan O'Connell. I don't know. Maybe I'm being too negative. Let me know in the comments section what your thoughts on that are. I mean, the Raiders ultimately have a fine receiving core and fine options, around the quarterback position. I don't think, like, the Colts probably were overall better just with, they have two receivers in Michael Pittman and Josh Downs, kind of similar with the Raiders of having Devontae Adams and Jacoby Myers, probably about net even. Colts have a lot of tight ends, but so do the Raiders with Michael Mayer and Brock Bowers. The running back situation in the offensive line is where I definitely give the edge to the Colts. Just for the sake of Gardner Minshew, how is he going to look in this new offense, in this new setting? I think he'll be fine, but, he'll be fine for his own standards, which I definitely wouldn't put among the top end of quarterbacks. Will probably be a team that, as much as, I am really rooting for them to succeed because I love Antonio Pierce, but I think that the roster is just not necessarily there yet, and especially at that quarterback position, they don't have the answer in my eyes, and I don't know how many people would really argue that they are fully sold on the quarterback room in Las Vegas. But if you are one of those people, let us know in the comment section as to why, because I think that it's probably going to be an uphill battle for the Raiders in this upcoming season. But we are now going to be moving on here to our last football segment of the day, where over the weekend we saw Daniel Jones make his first return back from his torn ACL injury that took place in November. So we'll be breaking down how he looked and whether there is anything serious to take away from the game as to what the Giants will look like in the future. So stick with us, and we will be right back after this quick break.